Hey guys. Okay, so first thing to talk about is we get introduced to who I think we could consider All Might's first protege sidekick and the USA's number one hero, Star and Stripe, which, yeah, I didn't think it was possible for Horikoshi to make a costume design more bombastic than All Might's, like, buff form. But I really should have known better. Like, honestly, where do I even begin with a character design like Star and Stripe? Like, other than saying, what the fuck am I looking at? Like, the only way I can ever use, the only methods I can ever use to describe this character and costume design of what Star and Stripe is to me is that if you took All Might, Captain America, America Chavez, a little bit of Superman, hell, every single American themed superhero you can think of, threw them all into a blender, and that is the result you'd get with Star and Stripe. Like, I'm speechless, and I don't know what to say about this character design. It is just so it's honestly even more bombastic than, again, it's even more bombastic than pretty much All Might in his prime, and that's saying something. Like, but I guess if I were to get more deeper into the weeds about it, with Star and Stripes like introduction, uh, one thing I'll be curious about, obviously, is how All Might and especially Izuku are going to interact with her, because and especially Izuku, considering she is basically in every way even more Izuku superior than even more of Izuku superior than pretty much Togata was, and just the fact that All Might had to make this request at all for her to come to Japan shows just how dire the circumstances are. Like, we are approaching the climax, and it will be a bloodbath of a battle, like bloodbath of a battle regardless. Like, if they're sending, if All Might had requested a hero all the way he knew all the way in America, then yeah, something it's all coming to a close here. And yeah, like, what can I say? Uh, like she almost feels like too good. Like, again, she feels like too much of a, she almost feels like a parody of every American superhero that's ever been created. But at the same time, I love it. I really do. Now, with that said, we also get the events leading up to the end of the chapter. More specifically, the events of how Stain got a hold of the intel about All for One and Shigaraki, as well as what happened after he gave it to All Might. And the explanation of the current state of All for One and One for All got a little bit tied up in technical jargon and a little bit convoluted with this chapter, but from just the way I could translate it is, and the main points to talk about is that the same kind of link that All Might had established with his vestige form that he had put into One for All after touching Izuku is more or less the same kind of connection that All for One and Shigaraki share now. But the scary thing is, just from the explanation of how it works, All Might is basically saying the connection between Shigaraki and All for One at its current state is even more powerful than his connection with One for All and Izuku, which is how Shigaraki's managed to elude being found, because that connection is so strong that he can literally hide his presence and block off that connection with One for All. Now, in that context, I do question how Stain was so able to easily find them when no one else could. But yeah, we've basically got a time limit of 3 days, 3 days until for basically all the world. 3 days is all the world and heroes have left before essentially the final battle begins. And yeah, it's like, I don't know what they're going to do. Like, this pretty much, like, if it at this point, it really is, we're really diving head first, full on into the climax. And yeah, it ain't gonna be pretty. It's going to, the way this is being, it's going to be a bloody massacre. I don't know how else to describe it. It feels like we're headed down we're headed down into something of a darkest timeline almost. That aside, though, as I said, we also get to see Stain's encounter with the prison officer, who I believe had a lot of the intel that's being used now. And I love how when the officer asked, What are you, Stain, man or beast?" And Stain's response is, "He's just someone who's an ally to the world," which I think is just a perfect encapsulation of everything Stain is and everything he's done in his life. He's not an ally to anyone other than what can help the world at large survive. And through that, I like how a lot of his inner monologue in this chapter is focused on how much respect he had for that single individual officer, because he could respect someone trying to protect something that would change the tide of the conflict he felt is more important, and that he felt is more important to get to All Might. Like Stain at the end of when you get around to it, Stain at the end of the day is truly one of those characters that has committed his fair share of sins, and he's self-aware of that. He's fully aware that there is no going back for him. He is in some ways, he is in more than one ways a villain. He has committed crimes for the sake of what he believes needs to be changed, but at the same time, he still feels obligated to honor the heroism he does see in a new world that's basically devoid of that same heroism. And at the end of the day, his actions are very reflective of a man who's an ally to no one, yet an ally to everyone. That was the perspective he saw from the officer that he took the data from, and he realized very early on that his role must be in this new world, and in a weird way, it is kind of painting Stain as this kind of unsung anti-hero, you could say. Like, he's definitely, don't get me wrong, Stain still has a lot to answer for, but he's definitely not exactly, he's never been a full-on villain, and in this particular instance, he basically is, he is more often than not humanity's savior. Humanity's savior. It doesn't matter as to what anyone thinks of it. Even Prince Sakauchi himself said, "I can't believe we're taking advice and intel from Stain, but what other choice do we have?" But the world is accepting that Stain is helping out in ways that heroes just can't. With that said, though, if I did have a problem with this chapter, is in its pacing. It was largely a giant setup chapter, and while those are always great, it's one of those things that makes me realize this is kind of going to be a little bit of the norm for a while. Like, we are going to be getting a lot of chapters that are strictly focused on the setup leading into the final battle. But I will admit, I am still liking chapters like this, and will take them kind of more over whatever is going to be going on with Class A right now, and what Horikoshi has set up with that, because pacing aside, what's going on with All Might just feels more important and relevant to the situation at hand, compared to whatever it is Class A is going to be doing. And don't get me wrong, I think it will be beneficial for Izuku, but I think it will be beneficial for Izuku, but I just don't know about in the overall story. That's the part that feels a little bit lacking. But yeah, guys, that's all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Analyst Crunchyroll. Be sure to hit the notification bell, subscribe button, and just share the video around, guys. Dark Knight of Anime, signing off. Later, everyone.